Hello dear students, welcome to this class of MA Final Paper 5th B, that is American Literature, and I am Dr. S. S. Verma from the Department of English. Dear students, uh, in the previous video, we discussed Wallace Stevens and his life, his education, his career, and how the poet learned the languages French, German, then he learned the literary history uh, of Europe and Renaissance, and how he was shaped and carved out as a poet in the American literary corpus. In today's video, dear students, we'll take up one of his poems. The poem is Of Modern Poetry, and the poet, what all he discussed in this beautiful poem of modern poetry, and what are the problems, what is the substance, and what message does the poet wants to convey in this beautiful poem of modern poetry. Before we proceed, I request you to open your books and read the text of the poem of modern poetry. So let us start with the poem of modern poetry. The poem, in this poem, the poet Wallace Stevens, he tells that the modern poetry, what kind of difference is there between the modern poetry and the poets of the previous era, poets of the previous literary uh, history. What is the basic difference, and what all does a modern poet want to convey, and what is the style of writing poetry, and he talks about some of the rules which were followed by the previous poets and some of the new rules which are followed by the modern poets. So, before we proceed, I request once again that you open the text of this poem of modern poetry. So, let us read out the poem. The poem of mind in the act of funding, what will suffice? It has not always had to find. The scene was set. It repeated what was in the script. So, if we look at these first four lines, we'll find that there is no rhyming scheme. So, let us proceed to the next stanza. Then the theater was changed. From now onwards, he discusses the previous uh, writers, and then he says, now then the theater was changed. That is, the modern writers, they started writing in a new, unique style to something else. Its past was a souvenir. It has to be living to learn the speech of the place. It has to face the men of the time and to meet the woman of the time. So Stephen says that the rules, they are changed, the writing style is changed, and now the modern poets, they started writing about their own contemporary times. That is, the problems of men and women, contemporary. The earlier poets, the romantics, they used to celebrate the nature. But now the subject matter, according to Stevens, it has shifted from nature to the problems of society, men, women. So we can say that Stevens, he says that the modern poet, he cannot write his poetry according to the rules set by the old poets, that is the poets of the previous era. So what did they do? They started the modification of rules according to the contemporary needs and contemporary problems. Poetry writing, he says, is always the poetry writing, it always reflects the situation, the present. And what is the present? In the present circumstances, a lot of things have changed. Now we are living in a modern industrialized world. So how can we follow the rules set by, say, Wordsworth, who was a romantic poet? Now the problems are different, so the writing style is also different. So the poet says that in the recent world, we will have to frame our own rules and will follow the and resolve and highlight the problems of the modern world, the contemporary world. The poet, he thinks that all rules of writing poetry, they should now be discarded. That is, we should do away with the old rules and we should frame new rules according to the contemporary uh, problems and try to form a new set of rules. The old ways of writing poetry, he says, they are now only a souvenir. And that he has used the word, its past was a souvenir. I quoted from the poem, its past was a souvenir. So now it is a thing of decoration only, and we should and we must carve out new rules of poetry writing and deal with the contemporary problems of men and women. The poet, he says that the world is a theatre, and if I will try to quote from the poem, then the theatre was changed. That is, now the rules had changed. The world is same, but the players, the situation, it has changed. The world is a theatre, but it has now changed. And the modern writers, the modern poets, the modern novelists, they have evolved a new form of writing, and it is modern poetry. It has a stage different from the previous one. The old writers, what kind of poetry they were writing, what set of rules they were following. The new modern poetry and modern writers, they follow something different, and it has now changed. The modern poetry, he says, is a living thing. We are living in this contemporary world. It has to be with the language, because the language now is English. The language has changed, and the place where once it belonged, it has also changed. Because now, if you see Indian writers, Indian poets, they are also writing in English. The African people, they are also writing in English. So English is now a global language. It is not now the language of England or Great Britain. The theatre has now changed. And the modern poets, they are readily expressing their feelings in this language, and the problems they take up concern modern men and women. So it is now expressing the thoughts and ideas related to the contemporary world. Let us now proceed to the next stanza. It has to construct a new stage. That is, now we should give away the old thing and we should construct a new stage. It has to be on that stage. And now we should bring the poetry to the modern standards. And like an insoluble actor, slowly and with meditation, speak words that in the delicatest ear of the mind repeat exactly that which it wants to hear, at the sound of which an invincible audience listens. So he says that now the modern man, the contemporary man, he wants to listen about his own world. He doesn't want to listen about the bygone days. So the writers, they should write about the modern world, and we should give away the old set of rules for writing poetry. So he says that the modern poet is evolving steadily but slowly. So the writer Stevens, he says that we should take care of the delicate ears of the people, of the mind, and what is happening, what is our audience, what does they demand. We should cater to these demands of the audience. Only then our poetry writing will be justified. I in an emotion, as of two people, as of two emotions becoming one. The actor is a metaphysician in the dark, twanging an instrument, twanging a wiry string that gives sounds passing through sudden rightness, wholly containing the mind, below which it cannot descend, beyond which it has to will to rise. It must be the findings of a satisfaction, and maybe of a man skating a woman, dancing a woman, combing the woman of the act of the mind. So we conclude the last stanza. So the modern poet, he says, has to express the feelings of the two, as if the feelings of the two people have mingled and become one. So the old and the new form of writings, they should have, they should now evolve and become one. He says that in the world of filmmaking, in the world of cinematography, if you look, the actor, he deals with the obstructions of light in the dark. He fixes the string of an instrument and produces sweet music. Any artist, any singer. And he says that this sweet music, it should be melodious. The sweet music or the sound, it intends to go up. And if the actor, he feels much satisfaction, the audience will feel much more satisfaction with the feel of that music. So the poet, he concludes the poem by saying that these are some of the activities that give pleasure and satisfaction, and the poet, he lays emphasis on the function of mind or brain. He says, if we put it into other words, he says, the poet, he stresses and says that whatever we write, it should soothe the minds of people. Just like music, he gives the example of music, just like the string producing music, if they are not melodious, if the actor is not producing melodious notes, then it will distract the audience. The audience will not feel one with the actor. So the poet Stevens, he concludes the poem on this note. Dear students, I hope you have understood the poem. We'll take up another poem in the next video. Thank you very much.